we are recording this meeting. Okay, let's start. Good morning or good evening to all, and welcome to the Data-Driven Community Virtual Meeting. A few words about the Data-Driven Community. If you will check the community website, then you can notice we are managing two branches of activities. Scroll down the page a bit to see the upcoming event. On the left side of the page, you can notice the Future Data-Driven Summit. This is an annual joint conference we are leading and running with the multiple data platform user group partners. The last event was in September 2024, and the next event will be on September this year. We did not start yet to open the registration, but you can prepare yourself. The second branch of activity we are leading is weekly meetings of the Cloud Data-Driven User Group. Like today, you are more than welcome to contact any of the community board members. Jen Joseph, who is our speaker last time, is the founder and the co-administrator of the community. Anna Weekly is a community moderator and event organizer. Dusty Gogri is a user group moderator and event organizer. And myself, I'm co-administrator of the Data-Driven Community. My name is Ronen Arieli. I'm from Israel, working as a senior consultant in the field of data platform and the architecture of enterprise-level systems. And today, I will be hosting this meeting. Together, we are here to help and serve the data platforms community. During the meeting today, please feel free to use the chat for questions and discussions as well. This is a user group meeting, not a conference, so we are not strict with the time. We do not need to move between one speaker to the next. So feel free to use the chat a bit more freely. You are also welcome to use reactions. It does not interfere with the course of the meeting. I love it a lot. If you hear something that you love, if you like something, or just you want to clap hands virtually, then feel free to do so during the session. Today, we are honored to have Ginger.G and Warwick.R with us as a speaker. Ginger, Warwick, you can share your screen and add a few words about yourself. And thank you once again for sharing knowledge with the community.
Great. Thank you so much, Ronan. Really appreciate it. Well, today I'm going to be here with Warwick, and we're going to be talking about developing with Spark with Microsoft Fabric and using Copilot. Of course, naturally, AI, all the things, since AI is what everybody wants to talk about and is interested in these days. So let's get started. A little bit about me. I am a data platform MVP, and I also have a couple of classes on LinkedIn on Fabric if that interests you at all. And I'm also an MCT. Warwick, want to introduce yourself?
Thanks, Ginger. Welcome, everybody. Thanks for coming along. And just like Ginger, I'm a data platform MVP. Cover all things across the data platform. I don't have any courses on LinkedIn, but hey, that's all good. So, but the big thing from the first two slides from mine and Ginger's are our contact details, where you can reach out and ask Ginger and I any questions you like about today's session. Reach out to us via our emails, via LinkedIn. We're both on Twitter, or we're both also on Blue Sky. So looking forward to going through what we've got today for you.
Great. Well, today we're going to be talking about, go ahead. You want to talk about this one?
I was just going to say, so we've got a couple of things that we're going to quickly go through. So we'll kick off and take you through what is Apache Spark and looking at Copilot in Fabric. Ginger.
All right. Thank you. So what is Spark anyway? Well, It was actually started as part of a Netflix contest. The contest was basically to figure out what is a better algorithm for picking suggestions on Netflix. And a bunch of grad students from Berkeley got together and did that, and they lost big time. But we all got Apache Spark out of it, and it is an open source framework that supports a number of different languages, R, Python, Java, the .NET. We're going to be talking about doing everything with the Python version of Spark. Scala is another one. And it is very scalable because it spreads the compute out to multiple nodes. And if you have money, you can infinitely scale throughout all of Azure. So it reads the data and caches it into memory. And it's designed to process data iteratively, like for machine learning, really, really well.
Okay, so because we are talking about Spark, what happened there? There we go. Because we are talking about Spark, we've got a couple of core components that we need to know about. So we've got Apache Spark as the base component, but that's broken up across 4 different components. Okay, and so as we can see here on the screen, we start off with our Spark SQL. Now, that's where we're going to be doing most of our work, which allows us to stream data. Okay, now the thing that we need to think about is when we are working with our data, that we're working with resilient distributed data sets, or RDD. Okay, and they're broken into logical partitions so that we're able to work on those and take advantage of scale, because they're able to go out and work on different nodes in the Spark cluster. Okay, the streaming, this is where we're able to get data from lots of different locations, but we're able to work on it rather than just waiting for it to be in batches come through to us, and we can ingest the data into those resilient distributed data sets. The MLID, or the machine learning, that's where we've got a number of different machine learning algorithms that are able to be used to be able to assist us with working with those data. And then Graph, or GraphX, I should say, that's where we're able to take that data and analyze it, but using a collection of nodes and relationships. Now, if you have played with Graph in SQL Server, that's where you have these balloons or circles and links to each other, and you're able to work out what those relationships are.
All right, like I said earlier, Spark does support a number of different languages. The one that you may not know with a little red swirl, that's Scala. And that was what it was originally written with, is Scala. So you do see that a lot, especially if you're looking at Databricks documentation. But one thing I wanted to call out on this is that while you may think of all of these different languages, 90% of the Spark API calls run Spark SQL. Which what that means is that you don't necessarily have to be an R developer or a Scala developer or even know a ton of Python, because you can use SQL to do a lot of your data manipulation and analysis. The SQL that it uses, though, back up one sec, the SQL that it uses is ANSI SQL. So you do have to translate that from T-SQL, which, hey, with Copilot, it's not that big of a deal.
Okay, so if we've got existing machine learning code that you've written and using in Python, then you may need to rewrite that in Spark. And the reason for that is that because the code is not using Spark's resilient distributed data sets, it won't scale. Okay, and so that's why we've got here the little panda crossed out, right? Because most of you will have heard of Panda, okay? But in Spark, or specifically what we're talking about here, to make that scale so that we're able to get the performance that we want, we need to have this little thing called koalas. Now, when Ginger and I first started talking about this, it was quite funny because for those of you who don't know, I'm from Australia, and one of the animals that we have are koala bears. And so we just find it funny that when these different types of things come about, the names that they're given, so we can see panda, but, you know, koalas were made to allow for the same type of thing as pandas, but it allows that to then scale to improve our performance.
All right. So Spark inside of Fabric is basically in the data science and data engineering experience. I want to call it out because these experiences, although they've been part of Fabric, I saw recently that they're looking to remove them. So you don't really have to care about what experiences that they are. Just know that you can do Spark inside of Fabric. And one thing, if you any of you who have used Synapse in the past or even have played around in other environments such as Databricks, starting up a Spark session can take a lot of time. And what Fabric has done is they have a warm start. So basically, your Spark session is running in the background, but you're not charged for it. And it is just running back there. So when you start it up, it takes seconds. In Synapse, this would take like up to 4 minutes. But now that allows you to more rapidly access the components, which means, say, if you're putting together a pipeline, you don't have to wait that 4 minutes for it to start. Using notebooks, you can write a whole bunch of different code if you want to write SQL, if you want to write Python, and it integrates directly with your Lakehouse. You don't need to write very complicated Lakehouse connection code to get a Spark session to run. And it really you can use notebooks and Spark to orchestrate data transformations. And a lot of people are kind of moving towards using notebooks and using Spark to do data transformation or ELT, or ETL, whichever one that you happen to be doing inside of Fabric.
Okay, so given that we are talking about notebooks, when we do load up a notebook, we've got a couple of options, and Python is listed as PySpark. Okay, so if you are familiar, like Ginger said, pre-Fabric, and you're used to using Synapse, then you needed to create a dedicated pool to load those libraries. And then when you were ready to start work, you could start and process the data that you've got. Well, in Fabric, we don't need to create our dedicated pools. We can optionally, but it's available for us out of the box and ready to start work. Now, we've got a couple of SDKs available to us for Python that allow us to work on your Azure management and runtime or what your data needs. Okay, now this is the Microsoft Azure Synapse Client Library, and it uses the Microsoft Azure SDK for Python. And this package has been tested on many different workloads, but the library's up to version 3.8. Okay, so what it means is that we're able to or get the management functionalities which you may want to access your code rather than using the UI.
Oops. All right, so Spark SQL is basically what you can use if you want to write SQL inside of Python. And hey, don't let anybody make you feel guilty because you're like not writing in Python, because it performs just as well if you wrote native Python code. And to do that, you're going to use the magic command. And the magic command is not that magic. It's just 2% signs. So put that in front of the word SQL, and then you can write native SQL. You just need to have exposed your data set in a way that SQL can consume it. And again, this is using ANSI. It's a little bit different than T-SQL, which you would use in other parts of Fabric.
Now we're able to see on the screen here, like Ginger mentioned, we can use the magic commands, but when we are working in it, we've got the two different methods. Okay, and so we can see our top method, we're using actual Spark, and we're going, right, let's create our data frame, let's go and use Spark SQL, and we've got our select statement, where are we pulling that data, and what are we filtering? So for us as data professionals, that looks pretty similar to what we would be used to when writing T-SQL code. Or, like Ginger mentioned, with the magic command, we're able to just use that % magic. And Ginger, I see that we just need to update this image because we've only got a single %. So we'll have to look at updating that. But with that, we're literally just writing our SQL code. Now, the way that I like to think about this, especially when we're in our Spark SQL, is it's a bit like if we were writing dynamic SQL inside of T-SQL, where we're creating our command, putting it to a variable, and then we're executing it. And so we can see here that our bikes underscore df is just like that variable, and then our display bikes is our execution command.
All right, so one of the things that I wanted to talk about is that, like a whole bunch of other things in Fabric, if you don't want to use the Fabric UI, if that's not your thing, you can also use VS Code and you can develop Spark within it. Now, you do have to install a couple of things, including the OpenJDK, which from the Java Development Kit. Ensure that you use the JDK when you're downloading, not the JRE. You need to install Conda. Conda is the mini Conda version of all of the Python libraries. And then you need to install the Jupyter version for VS Code. That's available inside, but I've also included the links there as well. Now, in addition to that, oops, you need to oops, just my mouse is not behaving today.
So in addition to that, we need to be able to, like anything, we want to add this to our Java home so that it makes nice and simple. When things are being executed, it knows where to go and find things. We've got our screenshot here, but we will actually show this in the upcoming first demo. But we needed to put it all in here because there's a lot going on so that you're able to do this after the fact, okay?
Another thing that you need to make sure that you do is modify the path. So go to Control Panel, edit the system properties, and make sure that your path includes the Java home bin and Conda bin. And when you do that, all of this is necessary to get VS Code working properly.
Now, to make our lives easier, because we are working in VS Code, we've got the simple way of installing things. We just install an extension. And so we go to the extensions inside of VS Code, go looking for the Synapse VS Code extension, run install, and it's very quick and simple for us. Now, the beauty of this being an extension, if you happen to work in an environment where things are locked down and you can't just go out and download things and install them, you can get this extension, give it to your security team, they can review it, then place it into a location that you're then able to have access and install that into VS Code.
That's a really good point, Warwick. And that's one of the reasons we wanted to step through all of these different steps for you, because we know that a lot of your environments, you're not going to be able to do all this stuff. So if you can kind of look at the pictures and then give those to your security team, if you're not allowed to do all this, so you can get it set up. And once you do get it set up, I've clicked on that Synapse icon here at the bottom. And that allows me to select a workspace once I've set my working directory, because I'll be copying that code locally. And that means that I can run everything locally in my local environment. So let's take a look at how that works. And I'm going to do that. Unfortunately, I had to do the Buck Woody method and actually do a video because I can't set up my machine every single time. So I just wanted to show the steps that it takes to actually go ahead and do that. So first thing I need to do is make sure that I've got my Synapse code environment installed. Like Warwick said, that's really easy. Just pick that off the list. It's kind of funny that they call it the Synapse VS Code. Obviously, they started working on this before Fabric. So this is just going to let me do that. Next thing I'm going to do is I am going to make sure that I have the latest Java installed. because I'll need that for my environment to be able to work. So I went to adoptem.net and then getting the JDK and saving that. And then, of course, putting that new Java in there and running that so that I have that able to do that. Go ahead and install that. So how I did this is I have two machines. So the first one I got it set up on, then I went through and did it again and made sure that I hit record so that I had all of the steps that I did to make this work inside of VS Code, because it is a bit complicated in the steps that you have to do to make all of this good stuff work. The next thing I need to do is make sure that I've got my Jupyter notebooks installed, that extension, and then of course Miniconda. So Miniconda is free, and I can go ahead and download it. One of the times that I did this, it made me give them a login, and the second time it didn't. Hopefully you don't have to create some bogus login for that, but hey, if you do, hey, you do. Miniconda is all of the libraries that Python is using, so that's why you need to install that. It installs all of the ones that you need to do to be able to run your code. So going to need to do that step as well. So run Miniconda and getting everything agree, because of course, you know, you have to agree to everything. And I did do this as administrator, so to make sure that I have all the permissions. And I am going to go with the recommendations and clear that package cache and then run it. Oh, by the way, I did speed this up. It does take a little bit longer if you're doing all these steps yourself. So don't think you can do this in 4 minutes. It takes about 10. But I didn't want to bore you any more than I already am. So there you go. We've got to have everything installed. I don't want to start it right now because I want to use VS Code. So next thing I need to make sure is that my path is set appropriately. So I need to make sure that I add a new environment variable here. And so what I'm going to do is add that Java home bin and make sure that my slash is going the right way. And then I will have that Java information that VS Code needs. And the next thing that I'm going to add to my environment variable is my conda library. So do that with conda bin. So I'm going to go ahead and say OK, and then OK again. And then I can go back to VS Code, and I've got everything installed now that I need. So except for the fact that I need to set my working directory. So I'm going to have to set that working directory for all of my code. So set that local folder because I'm actually copying it and then using it locally. So I'm going to set that local work folder and going to change that up to code and then say new folder. And this is where I'm going to have all of my stuff, and I'm just going to call it fabric. And this is where I'm going to make my local stuff is going to be. And I need to, of course, make sure that I sign in because I need to sign in at least 10 times a day. And so, yes, I logged in successfully, naturally did it in a different window. So I can close the window. So I'm going to go ahead and close that. So then I can go into Synapse, select my workspace. So I've connected now to my Fabric environment. I have a workspace called Fabric, and I can look at all the different notebooks that I have available inside of this. And I can go ahead and click on any of them that I want to see the different contents within them, download my notebook. And once I've got it downloaded to my local folder, then I have it available to me. So then I can just go ahead and open up that folder. And it gives me my IPMBY, and I am ready to start doing my development locally rather than inside of the Fabric UI. So I've got the options and I've got everything set up ready to go. Pretty cool.
Okay, nice job. And yes, much quicker than what we had to do first time round.
Yes, absolutely.
So from our Power BI or Copilot licensing requirements, okay, for us to be able to access Copilot in Power BI service, the workspace needs to be running on either an F64 or premium capacity. We need to have, or to use Copilot in Power BI desktop, then you need admin, member, or contributor access to at least a single workspace that is assigned to an F64 or higher or premium capacity, P1 or higher, okay, that has Copilot enabled on that capacity. And you need to be able to be added to a whitelisted section by your Fabric admin. Now, has it kicked over? Because we had that the premium capacities were no longer going to be available as at the end of the year, and I can't remember. Has that actually kicked over? It has.
Yeah, it has.
So need to just think about that side of things. So if you aren't already in this, you won't be able to go that premium. If you already have that, then you will, but look into that, because that's going to change from those PSKU capacity, PSKUs, to only being able to access that via the FSKUs.
All right. Now, I know that for everybody whose company does not shell out for an F64 SKU, they're thinking, yeah, great. Well, what kind of, how can I get Microsoft to write code for me? Well, there's another tool that does not require Copilot, and that tool is Data Wrangler. And Data Wrangler is a really cool tool for those of you who are familiar with Power Query or DataGen, DataGen Type 2. It can do the similar sorts of things. So if you're looking to transform your data sets, maybe you're not that great at Python yet and you'd like something to write the code for you, but you don't have an F64, this is the tool for you. It can help you clean up your data, translate that into Python, and you don't need that F64 to make that happen.
That's right. And so what it allows us to do is that, like Ginger said, we can be working in our notebook, and it allows us it'll generate that Python code that we need to know nothing about, so that we're able to add that easily back into our notebook. We're easily able to view the results, but analyze that data that comes about from that, as well as being able to create different visuals easily inside of the notebook to make that a whole lot nicer from a presentation, because everybody likes visuals rather than just plain data. And it takes that what we're trying to do into Python for us, right? And as Ginger said, we don't need an F64 SKU.
All right, enough talk. Warwick, why don't you show us how to make that work? And to do that, I'm going to stop sharing so we can take a look at your screen, so we can have you show us how to make that fly.
I'll just quickly do that. And I'll share this screen. Okay, we can see my screen.
Yes.
Okay, so this should look familiar to anybody who is using Fabric. Okay, I've just come straight into our data engineering environment. And so what we would normally want to do is create a new notebook, which I've done that just for ease of the demonstration. Once we come into the notebook, the first thing that we do need to do, because I need to add a data source. If we haven't added a data source, regardless what we throw in here, it's going to throw us an error. So I've added a lakehouse, and we've already got one, our DSI demo. So added that data source, and we're ready to go. So in our cell, the beauty of notebooks, if you haven't already played with a notebook, you've got different cells that you're able to go and add. But we're just going to start here with a code cell. Very, very simple. On our data source, we're calling out or having a look at some, lo and behold, beer consumption per person. Okay, so we're just going to run this and pull the first 1,000 rows of data. This should only take a couple of seconds to pull back our data, and that's going to place that 1,000 rows into our DF data frame. Okay. And lo and behold, because we're live, it has decided to, there we go, session ready, run that. Take a couple of seconds and we'll get our data back.
I see that's a very appropriate data set for people in Australia, I would think there.
I know, right? So, you know, it's going to, some of the results are going to be a little interesting, but so we can see we've got 4 columns come back from our data. Now, don't do this in production, select star. You always want to know what you're doing, but from a demo purpose, we wanted to see exactly what we've got. And so it's given us some data. Now, to use Data Wrangler, this is quite simple for us to be able to continue using. So we've got here Data Wrangler. Click on that and it brings us into our data set that we have returned from running that statement. Now, being data people, depending on what we're going to be doing with this data, having the column names as underscore C0, 1, 2, 3, 4, not really appropriate, right? So Data Wrangler makes this nice and simple for us to be able to, well, how do we easily go and change those? Well, we come down to our schema and we can quickly see here, we've got rename. We're able to choose the columns that we want to change. So we're going to change our C0, give it a name, and this is just going to be nice and simple. This is our country. We'll apply that, and we'll do that for all 4 columns. Luckily, we've only got 4 columns. Otherwise, we don't want to be typing all of this all of the time. I'll call that country code. We've got our 3rd column, which is our year. And our last column that we want to change being our capacity. Now, what you will have seen down here is cleaning steps. So this makes it nice and simple. If we happen to make a mistake while we're working through this, we can easily delete that step, takes us back to where we were. But literally, in a couple of clicks and a few keystrokes, we've been able to change the country codes. Now, to generate this in PySpark and add it back to our notebook, nice and simple, we just go add code to notebook. Here's our PySpark code. We'll click add and it comes back into our notebook. We'll just scroll down to that. So without knowing any PySpark, I've been able to take our data set, so a nice simple statement to pull that, and we've been able to rename those columns. Hitting our execute, that'll then go and pull that data back, but we actually get them in with column headers that we like to use and are more appropriate to the data sets that we've got. Now, being data people, and given we're going to be working with this, we can see here that our capacity consumption, right? Oh, hang on a minute, this is showing it as text data, but this isn't text data. So we want to go and change this to be numerical data. So if we come back into Data Wrangler again, we're able to easily change that. So we can come up to our column and go our options, and we want to change our column type. Straight away, we could go looking for it, but it brings us to our column, and then we're able to easily change this. We're going to set it to float 32, apply that change like we did before, add that code back into our notebook, come down to our new code, and we can see here what it's going and applying. Okay, and so we're doing a cast across to our float, execute that, and we should now have our data, and we can easily see here that we're now into a numeric data type. So without knowing anything about Python, I've been able to, or PySpark, I should say, I've been able to generate code that I can then reuse, but making my life very, very simple. So with that, let's jump back into the presentation.
It sounds like a really good way of learning how to teach yourself code as well. I mean, definitely that's a good tool for teaching yourself Python. All right, let's talk about Copilot. Now, of course, with Copilot, unlike Data Wrangler, yeah, you need to have an F64. If you have a Fabric trial, sorry, that won't work. You must have an F64. The pricing is get kind of complicated because I know what the rack rate is, and you can get pricing for uh, a year's reservation or hourly or monthly. So you are charged per use. Personally, I use the hourly and I turn it off when I'm not using it. So keep that in mind.
Okay, so when we are working in a notebook in Fabric and Copilot is available for you, it really can make your life easier. Now, in the demo that we just did, yes, that was Data Wrangler. It was not using Copilot, but the whole thing behind this is that it makes your life easier and allows you to be very productive. Okay, but if you don't know how to create charts, if you are having problems creating code, or it can even help you document your existing code based on the type of questions or what information you are giving to make your life easier. And we'll actually see what that looks like coming up shortly.
All right, so if you want to add code to Fabric Notebooks, really what you need to do is click on it, and it is going to create a bunch of things for you. And it's probably including like a load command and activating Copilot. And these are different steps that you may not have seen before, but it does it's going to take that information and then give you the functionality for Copilot.
Now, we've spoken about magic commands. Now, the thing with this is there's a list of magic commands that you want to be aware of to make your life easier. And we can see that what we've got up on the screen. So we've got chat. What does that mean? Just like its name, it allows us to have a chat with Copilot and ask it questions about what's in your notebook. We've got our code. This is where it's able to assist us in generating code based on what we're wanting to achieve. Describe. Tell me about what is this data frame that we're working on. So that's where you're able to get a better understanding, or if you're taking over somebody's code, because I don't know about you, Ginger, but I go back and look at some of the code that I've written previously, and I give myself a slap and go, "What were you thinking there?" This makes that a whole lot easier for us to be able to go, "What was that code trying to achieve?" Okay, we've got our add comments. So that makes it nice and simple for future me to not give myself a slap, because I can add comments. What were you trying to achieve? And then we've got fix errors. That's fantastic, because we'll all get dyslexic when we type, and sometimes we don't do the right thing in our code, and we need to fix that up. And so fix errors makes our jobs a whole lot easier. And then we've got translate. We're able to go from one language to another.
All right, so one of the things that's kind of annoying is that they had this great convention going where you had 2% signs and everything was like that. But yeah, that gets changed. The Spark Magic Commands allows you to do things like set the output with a single percent sign, a new task, and describe the code as well with just a single percent sign there.
And then using the Copilot pane. Okay, so we'll see this in the upcoming demo right after this, on how we're able to take the responses that we do get, and we're able to paste that straight into our workbook or notebook that we're working on. We're able to tell us about, because we've got that open, our notebook open, and we're working with certain data sets. Tell me what that is, right? So it's looking at what we have open in that context. And we're even able to assist us in telling, hey, load this data into a data frame for us. So with that, let's have a look at Copilot.
All right, so just to kind of go through the steps for this, I'm going to go ahead and make this bigger so that we can see it. Now, notice I've got this Copilot icon up here. Yeah, I need that. If I didn't have that, if I couldn't do anything. So what I'm going to do is I am going to do some really hard data frame development here, like do something like this. And again, this is just going to create some data frames that I can then analyze. So I'm going to look at my customers and I'm going to look at my sales and I'm going to go ahead and run them all. Now, the reason that I'm doing this is because I need to have data to analyze. And so I have to create that lake house first. And this is going to go ahead and do that so that I've got some data to play with. Now, once I've got my simple data sets going, then I'm going to go ahead and analyze them with Copilot. And we'll let this finish up. And then I'm going to go ahead and run Copilot. So give it a minute to give me my data sets here. And I'm going to then go ahead and initiate Copilot. Now, when I do, it tells me, hey, you're going to get Copilot. Do you want to do this? And also make sure that you check this. I was just talking to somebody the other day and they looked up a coupon code that Copilot generated for them, and it turned out to be complete crap. And you do have to consider that the fact that it's generating it, and 10% of the time, it's going to generate a lie. So you do want to check what you're doing with Copilot. So I'm going to go ahead and say that I want to run this Copilot to install this. And this is what it created. So it told me that, hey, you need to run all this stuff, and then you'll have Copilot available to you. So I'm just going to go ahead and say run all. So this is going to actually restart my workspace. So if you didn't do that, then it would restart it for you. Now, this does take a little bit of time, and because I am not terribly patient, I'm going to go back to this one to see if it ran successfully, because see, this looked like 19 seconds, if it will do that, and if it ran this successfully. Now I'm thinking that it did. I don't know what that message is for, but we'll just ignore it. So when it's done, and that one will be done, and we'll flip back to it, but you'll get this message. And this message is basically telling you that it installed a bunch of stuff, which is what we saw it doing before we flipped out of it because I was too impatient. And then it said that we got a bunch of chat magic commands. And here are the commands. So if you didn't remember any of the ones that we threw up on the screen, you don't have to. Now, you do have to run this every single time. And let's take a look at this one, because this one's probably still going. Yeah, it takes a while, which is why I did this earlier, so we wouldn't have to sit around and wait for it. So we've got these options here, and we also have that Copilot pane to be able to use here as well. So I can use my pane, or I can use different commands inside of Copilot. So here I just was created some my sales and product category, and I've got my customer ones as well. So what I wanted to do is I'm going to go ahead and have it write some code for me. So I'm going to go ahead and say, hey, I want to do this. I want to write some code. And the kind of code that I want to write is I want to, have it create some visuals for me, right? I want it to do that and make that happen. So I'm going to go ahead and say that I want to write some code. And so I'm going to ask it to write Spark code to analyze my sales table to track the number of orders per month in a chart. So I'm going to have it do that. So I'm just going to go ahead and have it do that for me. It's going to create some code, and when it's done creating that, I'm going to put that in get a code cell here. So it says that it's going to aggregate the number of orders. So I'm going to go ahead and use this insert code command. So it'll insert my code for me. And it did it all the way at the end. And so here is my code that it is going to create for me. And it tells me F is not defined. Well, that's lovely. So it said that DF monthly orders. Let me go ahead and do this again. Have it added in there, and so I've got my DF monthly orders, and it's going to take that using DF sales. So this was called DF sales, so it should be okay. So we'll see what it does. But you know, it gave me an error. Well, that's lovely. Last time I got it to do it correctly, so it gave me the sales amount over time and it drew a chart. So today it's not doing that really well. But let's say that instead I want to do something like I want to describe what is this DF sales thing anyway. And if I do that using this magic command with a single quote for describing sales, and it tells me that it contains sales data with information on products, customers, promotion, and financial details. Contains order dates, quantities, prices, and amounts. So it shows me my column names and gives me that little description there. But let's say that I want to have it write code for me, because you know I'm not going to want to have it do all my code, and since this didn't work out well, I'm going to try something different. So I'm going to say, hey, using my magic command, write some code, create a new data frame, and join my sales and products for me. And so we did that, and it created this for me and saying, hey, it created the cell, and it's using sales product, and it's merging these on product key using inner. So I can go ahead and run that. It's not liking my product one. Why is that? Oh, it called it product category. You'd think it would remember it from one thing to another, but you would be wrong. So let's see if I can get it to work it. And you know, this is just an example. To be honest, it's funny because I've done this demo before, and it seems like some days it works better than others, but it didn't remember the name of my product data frame, which is product category. So, and it's not sales product, it's sales. So I don't know what the deal is. So we'll get it to maybe do the right thing, but one would never knows, right? Nope. And let's see if I can run this again. Hello, new names. And it's not doing that because DF sales isn't about. What is it called this time? Oh, because again, it's case sensitive. So although, you know, periodically I can get this to run properly, there are times that it's like, yeah, not doing that. So make sure that I have things capitalized, and then I shouldn't have these problems. And it's not doing it. It's not allowing me to do it on my product frame. So this is just a great example of the fact that you can't do that with merge. It doesn't exist. So kind of funny that worked one time, but now it won't. But which is kind of an example of, you know, sometimes Copilot works and sometimes it just doesn't. So keep that in mind when you are having it generate code for you, because sometimes you're just not as successful as you might like getting it to do things for you. I mean, I did get it to describe things, I did get it to make me a chart, but no, it's not going to do it the second time, which is really kind of odd. But, you know, it is a large language model and they're not always accurate. So what can I say with that?
This
All
is
right.
related to
What?
This issue is related to the comment that you have at the top.
Yeah.
If you will check that you got at the top of the page, the system could not took the snap of the information.
Yeah.
And this is why it took the second time.
Yeah, it's just really weird that, you know, sometimes it'll work successfully and then it's the same code and then it doesn't, which is kind of annoying about it.
Beginning of just reload, usually it is working.
Yeah. But on that, let's just take a look at the summary. But we did take a look at a number of different things. Warwick, you want to summarize what we've been able to look through during this presentation?
Sure. So at the start, we had a look at what was Apache Spark, where Ginger introduced us to what is Apache Spark, how we're able to use it, and we then walked through having a look at the different components, what we need to know about what languages we can work with. Right, we got that introduction of Scala. We then how we're able to use Apache Spark inside of Microsoft Fabric. We had a look at the licensing requirements, specifically around Copilot for using that inside of Fabric and also inside of Power BI to use the Power BI service as well as the Power BI desktop. We had a look at data wrangling and jumped in and in that demo, how we're easily able to use Data Wrangler to generate code for us to allow us to learn. And once we've got that, we've got it in our code, making it our lives easy, where we're able to reuse that code, which is what we all like to do, to make our processing repeatable. Okay, setting up our pipelines with using the various commands or incorporating Copilot commands into our notebooks. And yes, for those of you in the audience who are speakers, you will understand that sometimes the demo gods just decide to throw couple of little side snafus at you to say, hey, I don't want to work properly today. You know, a classic one I had a number of years ago. I was preparing to do a session, doing a demo, and I had one demo that just wasn't working. And I actually, at the conference, I was able to go and talk with the Microsoft product lead for that. And while we were going through it, it worked. Then went and did the session and it did not work. Came out of the session and it worked. No rhyme, no reason, but hey, it is what it is. So, you know, we had a look at how we can incorporate that Copilot into Fabric for us. So there's a lot of information in here, especially setting this up so that you're able to work inside of VS Code. We've got that that video, but also all of the steps that you're able to then follow to make sure that you can set things up and do exactly what we've worked through here today. Okay, so as Ginger mentioned, for the Copilot side of things, you're unable to do that on the trial version for Fabric. Data Wrangler, you can do that on the trial version. So as long as you've got a lakehouse with your data, you can start playing with that functionality. So with
all right,
that,
well, we left a little bit of time for questions for any of us if you have anything about it. Network security blocks. Yeah, that's also a problem. Good call, Amy. If you have any questions for either of us, we'd be happy to answer them. So we left 5 minutes there for a question. So if anybody has any?
As Ronan mentioned at the start, feel free to put your questions in the chat. Raise your hand. You can, Ronan, are they able to, given that we are at the Q&A side of things now, if they do have a question, are they able to come off of mute and ask the question, or only via the chat?
No, we can unmute if anyone wants to speak, so just raise your hand at the upper side of the application. You can see the option to raise. So just
Brian asked where the video is going to be available. You guys have a YouTube channel, don't you?
Sorry again?
There was a question about where the video will be available, where and when.
Oh, yeah. So we are showing the recording. We record this session like always. The best way, I will put my personal information as well, is just follow me, and once it's ready, I always put a message on Facebook and on LinkedIn. So this is the fastest way to actually get a recording, or just follow the YouTube channel. But we don't, not always we announce in the channel about the new recording. I did mention something regarding the issue during a session. We all remember Bill Gates' blue screen of death.
Yes, that was
Anyone
funny.
challenge of speaking live, it's fun. It's part of the fun. I don't want to mention that you are working awesome together. You are in two parts of the world, and you really think between yourself. It was awesome. I did notice a question. Where will the video be available? Okay, as I mentioned, I will publish it on LinkedIn. Let me find my LinkedIn very fast.
One thing that I wanted to bring up is Warwick and I are also going to be co-presenting at FabCon. So any of you who are going to be in Vegas the first week of April, please come introduce yourself. We'd love to meet you in person.
Yeah, it'll be a fantastic event. So it'll be the third event, because given that it kicked off last year in Vegas, and then there was the first Europe conference in Stockholm in September last year. So it's not all just about Fabric. There are other data. There's a whole database track. So if you haven't registered, the sessions are just starting to come up and online. So yeah, register for that. Come and say hello. Be good to see you.
I do want to answer the one question. So in terms of how does a notebook has several parts. So the notebook is run as an entity. So let's say that the same thing that you would have if you had a data flow where it does a bunch of things and you have output. The output is what is the next part of the step. And like all good code, you don't put every single thing in a notebook. You have your notebook perhaps clean up a table or a set of tables, and then the that entire thing runs, the entire processes run. You get a new data set at the end of it. That is your output that you use for your next step in the pipeline. So hopefully that answers the question that we had about that.
I can give you a tip if you are going to Stockholm or to Sweden. From my experience, do not count on the weather. Every time that I'm going there, I spoke several times in Sweden, in the event, or in Denmark, it's basically the same. Every time that I'm going, I come prepared to one weather, and it's the opposite. One time I came like it was the summer, and everyone told me, hey, it's like Israel, you can go short. I came short, and it was raining all day, all the time. Last time it was exactly the opposite. I prepared myself, I came with a coat and everything, and it was like a summer. So that's my experience from Sweden. Come prepared to any weather.
Yeah, I just put a link in there for a discount code, and then I'm also doing a pre-con if you're interested at all in that. So, all right, well, we are at time. Thank you very much. Really appreciate the opportunity to present today, and look forward to talking to you again sometime.
Thank you a lot. We will see you, of course, in the next event. So thanks, Ginger, Warwick. It's a great session. Thanks, everyone, for joining us today. You can follow me on social media or Jen Joseph. We publish all the update information regarding the community. But most important, or the best way, is just follow the website of the community. You have the QR code here. You have the link in the chat at the beginning of the session. And you are welcome to join us next week, every week, at the same time.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, Ronan.